Imagine the weight of 1 billion tons of water pressing down on a thin shell of concrete. Inside, 9 men are breathing air that feels heavy, artificial, the only thing keeping the lake from crushing their lungs. They aren't thinking about engineering. They're thinking about the heat, the sweat in their eyes, and the wives waiting for them at the surface. They have no idea that the very ground they are digging is about to exhale a silent, invisible death. The lantern light does something strange down here. It doesn't spread, it just sits a small orange bubble hanging in a tube of black water and black rock, and the men work inside that bubble like it's the only light left in the world. Above them, 60 feet of lake bottom. Above that, the entire weight of Lake Erie, pressing down, patient, indifferent. It's July of 1916. Harry Vokes is the acting foreman on this shift, and he's got 8 men with him, deep in the tunnel, laying another ring of concrete into a tube that's only 10 feet wide. 10 feet. Picture that for a second. A hallway barely big enough to swing a shovel in, stretching for miles under one of the largest lakes in North America. That's the whole world for these men, 8 hours at a time. They're called sandhogs. The word sounds almost affectionate, like a nickname you'd give a dog that won't stop digging. And that's not far off. They dig, they haul, they shore up walls, they breathe air that isn't really air anymore. It's compressed, pushed into the tunnel at 25 pounds per square inch, hard enough to hold back the lake itself. That number is the whole reason anyone believes this tunnel is safe. Think of it like blowing into a balloon from the inside. To keep it from collapsing, the pressurized air inside the tube pushes outward with just enough force to counter the water trying to push in. It works. It has worked for months. The engineers trust it, the company trusts it, and the sandhogs. Men who've spent years learning to trust machinery they can't see the logic of, trust it completely. A mule named Nothing in particular pulls a small cart down a narrow gauge track, hauling out the muck they've dug through that morning. The rhythm of it is almost soothing. Dig, load, haul. Dig, load, haul. Somewhere behind them, an airlock seals off this section from the next, a heavy steel door that keeps the pressure exactly where the engineers calculated it should be. Here's the thing about that kind of trust. It has to be total, or it doesn't work at all. You can't do this job while wondering, every single minute, whether the wall beside you is about to fail, so the men stop wondering. They let the concrete and the steel do the worrying for them. That's the deal. That's what the wages are for. And the wages are good. Better than good, for men who mostly came from somewhere else. Immigrants, many of them, building a city's water system with their hands because it paid more than almost anything else available to them. Good money for hard work. That's the whole bargain, and it's a bargain plenty of men were willing to take, because money can make a man believe almost any risk is manageable. Building the modern world required men to work in places where nature never intended humans to be. If you want to support our deep dives into these forgotten tragedies, make sure to subscribe to Forensic Protocol so you never miss a case. Every breath they take is a calculated risk. The pressure keeps the lake out, but it also traps them in a high-pressure tomb. If the machine fails, they drown. If the air fails, they suffocate. But today the failure isn't mechanical, it's chemical, and it's already inside the room with them. Here's what none of them can see. Here's what no engineer, no foreman, no company report accounted for. Deep in the lakebed, sealed inside the mud these men are cutting through, there's a pocket of natural gas. It's been there for longer than any of them have been alive, trapped under sediment, under rock, under the patient weight of the lake, waiting for exactly the kind of disturbance that a tunnel boring machine provides. And this is where it gets genuinely unsettling. Natural gas in this raw form doesn't smell like anything. It doesn't announce itself. The rotten egg odor most people associate with gas leaks, that's an additive, put there deliberately so people can detect a leak in their homes. This gas has no such warning built in. No color. No hiss you'd notice over the hiss of the compressed air already filling the tunnel. No physical sign at all. So somewhere, in the rock ahead of them, closer with every foot the crew digs, there's a pocket of something that could kill every one of them. And it is, in every practical sense, invisible. The men keep working. Vokes keeps his crew moving. The lantern keeps burning that same small bubble of orange light. Somewhere behind them, 10 feet of tunnel wall stands between 8 men and the crushing black weight of an entire lake, and every one of them believes, completely, that the wall is enough. It's the kind of confidence that only exists in the space before disaster. Nobody down here is thinking about gas pockets. Nobody's thinking about combustion. They're thinking about the next section of concrete, the hour left on shift before they climb back up into daylight they haven't seen since morning. That confidence has maybe minutes left to live. Because somewhere just ahead, in rock that's about to give way under the pressure of digging, that gas is finding its path out. And when it does, it won't need much. It won't need a storm, or a mistake, or any dramatic failure of engineering. It just needs the lantern. The rock ahead doesn't crack, it doesn't warn anyone. It simply stops holding. For a fraction of a second, there's a sound underneath the sound, a deep pressurized groan buried beneath the clang and hiss the men have stopped noticing hours ago. Vokes might have heard it, might have turned his head toward it. There's no way to know, and there's no time to know, because the wall in front of the crew buckles inward with a force that doesn't belong underground. For Harry Vokes, the foreman, the last thing he likely felt wasn't pain. It was a sudden, chilling draft of cold air where there should have been heat. A moment of confusion. A glance toward a comrade whose face was illuminated by that small orange bubble of light for the very last time. It isn't a leak anymore. It's a jet gas under lakebed pressure doesn't seep. It screams through the breach, filling the tunnel's atmosphere in a heartbeat, and for one suspended moment, nothing happens. The gas is there, the lantern is there. The two haven't touched yet. Then they do. The spark finds the cloud, and the tunnel stops being a tunnel. It becomes a barrel of a gun. Fire doesn't creep down a confined tube of 10 feet in diameter, it detonates through it. Wall to wall, floor to ceiling, an entire section of shaft consumed in less time than it takes to register the word fire at all. The mule cart is gone. The narrow gauge track that carried it is torn loose and thrown. And the men closest to the breach, the men who trusted the wall completely, right up until it wasn't a wall anymore, die instantly. Not slowly, not with time to understand what's happening to them. Instantly. 9 of them, gone before the sound of the blast even finishes traveling down the tunnel toward the surface. Sit with that for a second. Because for the men who don't die in that first fraction of a second, the ones far enough back, shielded just enough by a bend in the tunnel or a stack of equipment, the nightmare is only starting. The fireball burns through the oxygen and the light at the same moment. Every lantern in that section is either destroyed or starved out by the same blast that stripped the air of everything breathable. And in a tunnel 200 feet under Lake Erie, there is no ambient light. There is no moon leaking through a window, no distant street lamp, no glow of any kind to soften the dark. There's only black, absolute, total, wall-to-wall black. The kind of darkness most people never experience. Even eyes fully adjusted find nothing to adjust to, because there is no light down here to begin with, and there won't be. Not until someone brings it back down with them. Now here's the detail that should chill you more than the fire did. This wasn't an accident anyone could have smelled coming. Couldn't have heard hissing behind the walls. Couldn't have prepared for, even with every safety instinct, these sandhogs had sharpened over years of dangerous work. Odorless, colorless, silent until ignition. The men working this tunnel had exactly 0 seconds of warning between normal shift and catastrophic explosion. And that gap, that complete absence of any transition, is what makes this disaster different from almost anything else that happened underground in North America that decade. According to the Case Western Reserve University Encyclopedia of Cleveland History, the blast and the chain of events that followed it ultimately claimed 21 lives. 11 of those deaths happened in this tunnel, in these seconds, in this fire. But 11 is not the number this story ends on. 11 is only the beginning of the count. Because somewhere past the wreckage, past the twisted rail and the fire-scarred concrete, there are survivors. Men who didn't die in the blast, but who are now sealed in a lightless, gas-choked tube more than a mile from the only way out, breathing an atmosphere that no longer has enough oxygen in it to keep a man's mind clear for long. They can't see each other. They can't call out and expect an answer from anyone who isn't already dying beside them. All they have is the dark, the ringing in their ears, and the growing, suffocating awareness that whatever just happened, it isn't over. Somewhere above them, word is already reaching the surface. Men are already gathering at the tunnel entrance, already preparing to go down after the survivors. They have no idea that the tunnel isn't finished killing people yet. Picture the shaft entrance in those first minutes. Men shouting over each other, someone already stripping off his coat, already reaching for a rope, already convinced that going down fast is the only thing that matters. Nobody standing there yet understands the air itself has turned into a weapon. Below them, in the dark, the survivors are learning a new kind of geography. Not by sight, there is no sight anymore, but by touch. A boot, a shoulder, a body that doesn't respond when you shake it. They're crawling over their friends to find the way out, and they don't always know, in that first horrible contact, whether the man beneath their hands is unconscious or already gone. The air down there isn't just foul, it's actively starving them. Methane doesn't attack the lungs the way smoke does. It simply crowds out everything breathable, replacing oxygen molecule by molecule until a man can be pulling air into his chest as fast and as deep as his body demands, and still be suffocating. That's the cruelty of it. No burning sensation to warn him, no coughing fit that signals danger, at least not at first. Just a slow fog settling behind the eyes, thoughts arriving late, hands that stop obeying commands the brain is still sending. Some of them start to lose their grip on where they are, on what's real. Men who have spent years navigating this tunnel by feel are suddenly disoriented in a space they should know cold. That's the gas working on the mind before it finishes the body. And then from above, help arrives. John Johnston leads the first rescue party into the wreckage. These aren't strangers rushing in blind. They're men who know this tunnel, who've walked it 100 times, who understand exactly how far it is to the blast site and exactly how urgent every second has become. They move fast, they move with purpose, they move directly into the same invisible cloud that just killed 11 men. Nobody told them the gas was still there. Nobody could have. There was no way to know. No warning light, no odor drifting toward the entrance to tip them off. Just still, dead air that looked, from where they stood, like a tunnel waiting to be searched. They get deep, committed, past the point where retreat is a quick decision anymore. And then, one by one, they go down, not dramatically, not with some final cry that echoes back to the surface. They simply stop moving forward. Legs give out. Bodies fold. The same silent process that's already working on the trapped survivors starts working on their rescuers, and there's no reason for it to move any slower on a healthy man breathing hard from exertion. If anything, it moves faster. Every desperate gulp of air pulls in more of what's killing him. Word gets back to the surface that the first party hasn't returned, and here is where this disaster does something almost impossible to comprehend from the outside. They send a second party in anyway. Gus Van Duzen leads them, knowing, or at least suspecting, what happened to Johnston's men. Going in regardless, because somewhere in that darkness, there are still survivors, and somebody has to try. This second group makes it further than anyone expected. But the tunnel doesn't care how brave they are, or how much oxygen equipment they've improvised, or how badly Cleveland needs this rescue to succeed. The gas doesn't negotiate. They go down too. 10 rescuers total, lost inside a tunnel they entered specifically to save the men who were already trapped there. Read that again slowly, because it's the detail that separates this disaster from almost every other industrial catastrophe of its era. This wasn't one bad afternoon. It was a chain reaction of good men walking into the same invisible trap, over and over, because from the surface, there was simply no way to tell the danger was still active. For the survivors still conscious in the dark, this changes everything. They can hear commotion, shouting, movement, hope, however brief, and then silence again. No hands reaching for them. No lights cutting through the black. Just the terrible understanding, settling in slow and complete, that the people coming to save them have stopped coming. Hours pass this way. Men coughing blood into their sleeves, men losing track of time, of names, of which direction leads out. The gas doesn't kill fast. It kills patiently, working through every man still breathing that air, minute by suffocating minute, while above them, at the surface, someone finally realizes that sending more men down the same way is only going to add more bodies to the count. Somebody has to find another way in. Something has to change about how a man breathes down there, or nobody left alive is coming out of that tunnel at all. A tube trailing down to the floor, that's the strange detail witnesses fixate on later. Not the mask itself, but the long canvas hose hanging from it, dragging along the tunnel floor like something alive. Nobody at the entrance has seen equipment like this before. A man walks up wearing a hood that covers his entire head, breathing through a device nobody down here recognizes, and he's asking to be let through to the one place that has already killed 10 rescuers. His name is Garrett Morgan. He didn't build this for a tunnel under a lake. He built it as a general safety hood, something to filter smoke and fumes in burning buildings, in sewers, in exactly the kind of poisoned air that has already claimed so many lives tonight. But standing at the tunnel mouth, watching stretcher after stretcher come out empty, he understands what he's looking at. A confined space, a gas nobody can see. Men still breathing down there, somewhere, running out of time. Whether the hood works underground the way it works in a burning house, nobody actually knows. There's only one way to find out. His brother Frank goes in with him. A witness named William King is there to watch it happen. One of the only clear first-hand accounts of what came next, because most of what happened past the tunnel entrance that night has no witness at all. King watches the two brothers pull the hoods down over their faces, watches the long tube swing loose against their legs, and watches them step past the threshold where 10 men already walked in and never walked out. Picture it from King's position, standing at the mouth of that tunnel. The darkness ahead doesn't just look empty, it looks final. Every previous attempt to enter that space ended the same way, men going in upright and coming out at all. And now, 2 more men are walking toward it, breathing through canvas and filtered air, betting their lives on a device that was never tested against this exact horror. Minutes pass, the kind of minutes that stretch out and refuse to end. Then Morgan comes back out of the smoke. He's carrying someone, a survivor, barely conscious, slung across his back, pulled from somewhere deep in that suffocating dark. King watches it happen and never forgets it. The hood, the tube trailing behind him, a man emerging from a space that had already proven itself lethal to everyone who entered it before him. Morgan doesn't stop there. He goes back in. And again, 4 separate trips into that same poisoned air, each one a fresh bet against a tunnel that has already killed 11 men in the initial blast, and 10 more trying to reach them. 4 trips, breathing through a hood built for house fires, dragged into a nightmare, 200 feet under a lake that nothing on land had ever prepared it for. By the end of the night, Morgan and his brother have pulled 2 workers out alive. They also recover 4 bodies, men who didn't survive long enough for the hood to reach them, brought back up so their families have something to bury. 2 men breathing again because of a piece of equipment nobody trusted an hour earlier. 4 men found and carried home instead of left in the dark forever. Against a tunnel that took 11 lives in an instant, and 10 more in the desperate hours after, it isn't enough. It was never going to be enough. But it's the only thing that night that worked. 21 men never came back up. Some accounts pushed that number higher, into the 20s, as recovery work continued and the toll kept shifting in the days after. However the final count settles, the shape of what happened underneath Lake Erie in 1916 doesn't change. A pocket of gas nobody could see, a wall that gave way, a rescue that became its own disaster twice over, and 1 man wearing a hood nobody had tested for this, walking into the dark 4 times because somebody still down there was worth the risk. The Lake Erie disaster was a brutal lesson in invisible dangers, but sometimes the greatest risks are the ones we think we've engineered away. To understand how a modern tragedy mirrored these same themes of overconfidence, watch our investigation into the fatal flaw of the unsinkable submersible right now, or explore our full archive of forensic breakdowns in this playlist. I'll see you there.